All right, so welcome to another book recommendation video on this channel. The first book, these are my top five fiction books right now. I may read a lot of fiction in the future. There may be some books that I have not mentioned here that I'd like to include in this list, but these are just books I'd recommend to anyone. And I feel like I've read some of these books two or three times and I still really enjoy them, which is why I've included them in this list. And I really think choosing your favorite books is a very subjective experience, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. You like books because of your own emotional journey. You like certain books because of what it means to you at a certain point in your life. There are certain books that you may like at one point and may not like at another. So these books have stood the test of time and I've liked them over and over again, even though I've read them at different times in my life. So, the first book that I'd like to talk about is One Day by David Nichols. I have a physical copy of this book, and I really think it's a beautiful love story of two people. And each chapter in this book is about them meeting at a particular date in a particular year of their lives. So you look at their relationship over a 20-year period and where they're at individually in that 20-year period. And I think what's beautiful about this book is how it shows the evolution, or it shows how humans change from their 20s to their 30s and 40s, and how your expectations from a relationship changes from your early 20s to your 40s. And Emma and Dexter both go through a lot of professional and personal challenges, and slowly they come together and meet each other, but also realize that there's a lot of things that pull them apart. And, over everything, they're able to make their relationship work. And it's beautiful how their relationship moves from a friendship to something that is more defined in terms of a marriage. So that's my first book, my first fiction recommendation. The next fiction recommendation that I would have is Our Souls at Night by Kent Haroof. This is a beautiful book because it talks about what happens when um, you are retired and you're staying on your own and you don't have a partner to live with and you don't have kids to take care of anymore, or your parents and relatives don't stay close by. What happens in that stage of life? What kind of connection and longing are you looking for at that stage in your life? Again, I came across this book because of Goodreads, and I really think it was one of my favorite books last year. It came to me at a difficult time in my life, and reading the book just made me feel really happy and calm about life and excited about what life would be like once you have retired, and you're not as ambitious, or trying to conquer the world, or always change things. But this is the story of Addie Moore and her connection with Lewis Waters, who's a neighbor, and they're both at a stage in their lives where they don't have too many people to look after, and they slowly develop a close bond with each other at this stage in their life. So that's my second recommendation. The third book that I'd like to recommend is Anxious People by Frederick Backman. He's a Swedish writer, and this particular book is about a bank robbery and the people involved in that bank robbery. Backman basically tells us about their backstory. And it's beautiful because you realize that everyone has things they're going through. They may not talk about it, but it tells you about the backstory of seven or eight people that are in that bank when that robbery happens, and you slowly empathize with each of their journeys, and you realize why they react a particular way in a particular situation once you understand their backstory. And there are lots of things that we can't talk about in our individual lives, so we have to give due consideration to those stories that we don't hear about in everyone's lives. We're all going to go through illness, we're all going to grow old and face challenges of our own. So this story really humbles me to, you know, made me understand that you need to know how different people have different stories, and maybe your understanding of happiness would be very different from the understanding of happiness for another person, and that person may be your best friend too. The next book that I'd like to recommend is Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts. And I think this is a beautiful Bombay book. That's why I like it. It's a book that tells you about, it's told from the perspective of Lynn, an escaped convict with a false passport who flees a prison in Australia for the city of Bombay. And it's about his life in Bombay, and how he makes a living there, and goes through a lot of challenges. It's a really big book, but I thought it's a beautiful book about second chances, and how everyone deserves that second chance in life, even if you have gone through a lot of turmoil and pain. And the final book is The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. I've always spoken a lot about this book in this channel, and I highly recommend it. I was first introduced to Lahiri's work through her short story collection, but this particular book is about the story of the Ganguly family who moved from Calcutta to America. I think it's one of the most powerful and relatable depictions of that immigrant experience of moving from one country to another. And it really does a good job talking about the relationship between parents that are immigrants and first generation children. So I thought it was a beautiful story, and I found a lot of connections with my own personal life growing up in the Middle East. So these are my five books: One Day by David Nichols, Our Souls at Night by Kent Haroof, Anxious People by Frederick Bachman, Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts, and The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. Please do subscribe to this channel. You can find more such book recommendations in the book section of this channel. And also, a lot of talks by authors of these books have been documented on my channel. I really would appreciate the support, and I look forward to hearing your comments in the comment section of this video. Please leave a comment with maybe some recommendation of a fictional book that you really enjoyed reading. I will, respond and review to those comments, but also look up the book and try to get a copy and maybe leave a review and put a shout out to you in that review. And that's my recommendation for my top five fiction books.